suppose, a controlled person, but I knew I needed to do it, and as I said, I was just unsure about what lies ahead. I never expected to get ill, and I certainly never expected to get ill or be diagnosed with cancer at the age of 35.
I really wasn't expecting a diagnosis. The last thing was, even though I went along to see my GP, it took a good few weeks for me to be diagnosed because I was what they called a younger woman.
A lady called Fiona Tiernan made contact with me, and she's a double breast cancer survivor, and said, look Julie, I've been reading some reports that a Dr. Mackenzie in Canada has done some research, and that research shows that repetitive upper body movement can help aid the effects of lymphedema or even prevent it. And basically lymphedema is the swelling of the arm once the lymph nodes have been removed following surgery.
Well, I had a bit of a difficult year that year because my mother had died very suddenly. One of my cousins was diagnosed with another type of cancer, ironically, so she was very sick. And then I thought I was being a hypochondriac. And I did a few things wrong, and my GP is a friend of mine, so I was talking to him on the phone, and he said, look, you know, I think he thought I was being a hypochondriac, and he said, look, we'll just get a few things checked out for ease of mind, you know. So this was the first one, and when I went along, I got an appointment I went privately to the consultant because I just thought, I didn't know anything about what you need to do if you have symptoms. So I had pains in my breast, my left breast, and also I had, I could find some lumps, but I wasn't really sure if that was, you know, if that's what I was finding. And then I was very tired, but I had put that all down to all the things that had been happening with my mother dying and my cousin being sick, and just the Special Olympics were on that year. I'd been working at that, and it just was non-stop. So, as I said, my mind wasn't really thinking. I was just getting something checked out.
And she asked me had I told anybody, and I said no. And he said, I think when you come back to me next week, you should have somebody with you. So I asked him straight out. I said, what are you trying to tell me, that there's not good news going to come out of this? And then he pretty much told me that day. He said, I'd be 70% sure, and the Dr. Duke, who did the ultrasound, is 90% sure. So he said, but we'll wait until, we'll do the biopsy tomorrow and we'll wait. So I guess I just sort of, I sort of strangely knew from very early on. So that week of waiting, people say the hardest part is waiting for the results of a biopsy. But I nearly knew before the biopsy was even done, because he felt so sure, and he was very open and honest with me. He gave me a glimmer of hope, saying they're only 90%, 70% and 90%. But I was fairly sure. So yeah, it was a strange week, and the hardest part of that week was actually not trying to get to grips with the fact that I was probably going to be diagnosed with cancer. It was getting to grips with the fact that I need to tell my family.
What is all this about? What's happened? How am I here? How am I supposed to continue on? How do you get back to? You can't. It's not. Your life will never be normal again. It's a very different. You know, you have to think differently after that. You can get back to it's a new normality, you know. But it's certainly, and I know I went rock bottom at that point.
Particularly, I could see with my mum. She just wanted it to be her. You know, yeah. Why is that Tara? Why isn't it me that this has happened to? Which is obviously a silly attitude, because none of us in any of our families want it to happen to any of us. But that's the automatic. But you know, at the same time, they were all wonderful from the start.
When you left this mess, basically, you're put on about 3 stone. You're bald. You look pale, white. And you don't know what's happened to you. And to be honest, what you were saying about your head, where it is. You actually, well, I sort of feel, people might say the same thing, you get a routine from the hospital. So I knew that once I was in, I knew where my surgery date was. I knew as soon as that you recover from that, they then bring you, start chemo. Then I had a break from chemo for 3 weeks, and they give you radiotherapy for 6 weeks, and then you have another break, and for say 3 weeks, and then every 3 weeks you get your chemotherapy. So you have this routine, and you're going to the hospital and you're getting blood tests, and you're getting, so you're just in it's like a pattern that you have to follow through. So you don't really get a lot of time to think. You actually, most people, it's only afterwards they stop and go, what the hell was that?
It got to the stage where every time you'd wash it, it was getting more difficult to wash, and there was more chunks of it coming out, and then it'd be almost, it just wasn't a nice experience. So I just decided, you know what, let's just get rid of it all now and shave the rest of it and be done with it. And that part was done. So then I went and got a wig, because I thought I will need to still preserve, as I said, my femininity, because it nearly always seems more important for a girl to have their hair, and I had long hair. So I went and got the wig, but like we always refer to my wig as Tina, and that was us putting our bit of humour on things. It was the Tina Turner sort of element of it. So rather than, where's the wig tonight, when we'd be going out for dinner, like the girls might go, is Tina coming with us tonight, sort of thing, so it was the wig on or off. And thing is, I got used to not wearing it a lot, and I just have like a walk-in wardrobe full of scarves at home that I'll have to open up as a shop sale for some day. And so it just alternated. So you do just get used to it. And, you nearly keep going on with it. And sometimes if you're out and you're walking and then you catch people doing a double take because you've got a scarf in your head and they're sort of reckoning, oh, I wonder, is that girl got cancer? You just forget it. You just get on with things, and you forget sometimes nearly the impact of cancer is more on others than it is on yourselves. Someone
mentioned this to me about the paddlers, that they'd seen something and they sent me, but at the same time I'm with a charity, as I mentioned, called Europa Donna Ireland, and it's a patient advocacy group, and through that we got this information about it. And I looked in the media, and went, I'm going to do that. I thought, I'm going to try something different, and this is obviously okay for me to do.
The whole reason it was set up was in order to try and control lymphedema. So I said, that's it. That's for me. I have to join them. I have to see what they're all about.
We started training, I think, March in 2011, and that was on the end of in October that year. So we trained for 6 months. We have a great coach, Julie Doyle, right, who really knows her stuff, and she's very experienced in these. She's on the Great Britain team, so she knows what she's doing. So she got us training very hard, and off we went. Somebody sponsored us, got cheap flights to go out to Kuala Lumpur, and off we went.
So with Pluribel paddlers, I feel it's very important that when we're out training that they're treated like a sports team and not like breast cancer survivors, and that's how sort of I have my relationship with them. I am the coach, they are my sports team, and that's how we work together.
I think that when we all got together, we were doing our paddling, learning about all of that, and people didn't talk about breast cancer. And then it was gradually over the while, we'd go for coffee afterwards after training, and after a while you'd be sitting there and then someone might ask you something or mention something, and then we'd get into a conversation, maybe 4 or 5 of us would into a conversation, and then you'd hear another group at another table, and slowly but surely people began to mention bits and say, did this ever happen to you, or I have this, or I'm worried about something. And it was interesting to see how the little groups formed and people then got that kind of support from each other. Whereas at first we didn't really talk about it. Yeah, it was interesting when people didn't really mention it.
We had achieved so much in such a short period of time, and that just sort of in my head, that proved to me how much we are going to achieve. If we could do that in such a short period of time, we can achieve so much if we really put our minds to it.